So XRP was able to flip a BlackRock themselves in market valuation yesterday, but right now things have changed a little bit because the valuation is down a little bit. But come on, BlackRock, show some recognition, show some respect, and announce a filing for a spot ETF. I'm just joking, but again, it just makes sense. I don't know what you guys think, but do let me know in the comments down below if you guys think that it makes sense. I think it makes sense. You're seeing floods of different ETF filings from different AUMs, and obviously, those exact asset managers are in reality BlackRock's competitor. So it just makes sense for them to come and file for an ETF. But welcome back to the Crypto ZX channel, to the XRP army. We're seeing a sea of red. I'm sure you guys saw that in my HBAR update. If you did end up watching that, you can see across the board, once again, a lot of red as we are starting off, a brand new week. And speaking about a brand new week, today is obviously the start of the final week of August. Which is obviously something we need to keep in mind. But XRP right now, obviously reacting to the broader market, down about 3%, with the price currently sitting at $2.94. We're also down about 0.4% in the Bitcoin comparative side of things. Valuation 174.9 billion. So this is why I said, we are lower than a BlackRock's market valuation now, because of course, we're seeing a little bit of a retracement, but I think it's inevitable that, we do make our way above that, because I think this is the third or fourth time we actually did briefly go above BlackRock's valuation. And the 24-hour trading volume for XRP is about $6.5 billion. But before we get into any further, as always, just a quick disclaimer, anything on this channel is not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence and research when you are investing in crypto. So US spot Bitcoin ETFs recorded 1.17 billion of outflows last week, making its second largest outflow since, obviously the launch of the ETF itself. But, I'm not surprised at this. Reason why I say I'm not surprised at this is because of the way the dominance is pulling down, meaning, Bitcoin profit now is, going into altcoins, and specifically Ethereum. If you're looking at it, a lot of whales specifically are actually switching their Bitcoin into ETH. If you've been noticing that, you can obviously, kind of put one and two together. So I'm not surprised at this. Moving forward, though, Bitcoin treasury company Metaplanet has announced that they have added to the FTSE Japan index following strong Q2 performance. The inclusion would funnel passive capital flows into Bitcoin markets and provide traditional investors indirect exposure to Bitcoin. And on top of that, Trump's crypto advisory David Bailey says there's not going to be another Bitcoin bear market for several years. Very interesting. Is Bitcoin, breaking out of the 4-year cycle? Are we not going to see those major corrections anymore? A part of me thinks, it makes sense, but part of me is also, cautious based off of what we're seeing with the outflows. Look at the outflows, but I think the demand is definitely outweighing the supply. So I definitely think, and I said this long ago as well, if you follow the channel from a day-to-day perspective, you guys know this. I've said this a long time ago that, we are going to see, Bitcoin not seeing as crazy of a price, corrections once institutions come on board. And now you're starting to see, David Bailey also mentioning that. Again, obviously time is the most important factor, but again, let me know in the comments what you guys think. And I also do believe, projects that have that regulatory clarity, the ones that have that institutional demand, aside from Bitcoin, might also, end up doing something similar. But of course, we'll see what happens. In terms of an opportunity standpoint. For long term, obviously, that's where your due diligence comes into play. But remember, exit strategy. It's something very, very important for you guys to keep in mind. If your target is to lock some profits in sometime this year, then stick with that strategy of yours. Make sure you lock some profits off of the table. If it's for the long term, you guys know, always do your due diligence research and invest what you can afford to lose. If you've done that, then patience is your number one key to follow. But let's take a look at what Reese Merrick says. The stablecoin market, currently valued at approximately $300 billion, is projected to experience significant growth potential, potentially reaching $1.2 trillion. $1.2 trillion by 2028. That's just literally 2.5 years from now on, with some forecasts reaching up to $2.8 trillion by 2028. The robust expansion, underpinned by regulatory advancement like the US Genius Act and growing fintech integration, reflects stablecoin rising role in providing stability and liquidity across volatile financial ecosystems. As stablecoins become a key part of global financial infrastructures, the next wave of adoption will be driven by utility and institutional demand, and Ripple is perfectly positioned to capture this growth. If you want to read this entire article, go follow Reese Merrick on X, and you can, kind of go over the sweet, very, very informative article. But, Nate says, I totally agree with this. Still amazed how many TradeFi investors love to disparage crypto investors. So pretty much saying, TradeFi, the traditional side of things, those investors tend to, not talk too positively on the crypto side, and can only believe it comes down to a lack of understanding or jealousy of returns at this point. We can debate who winners and losers might be, but crypto is here to stay. Not sure what else to say. Totally agree with it. If you're looking at the equity market side, a lot of investors actually have come into the crypto space over the last 1.5 years. The ones that I know personally in my life, before they never really looked into crypto. And your boy Crypto ZX always used to talk to his friends and emphasize how I love crypto and stuff. And now they're reaching out to me saying, Crypto ZX, you were right, my friend. You were right, my friend. And we should have been paying attention to Bitcoin early on along with Ethereum, but that just shows you how fast things are moving. Well, take a look at this. HSBC says, the timeline for crypto adoption has accelerated as a result of regulatory clarity and AI. There will be a wealth creation for everyone involved. The time horizon for crypto adoption has shortened, of course, because of the Genius Act, the Clarity Act, a lot happening for this industry. And moving forward, take a look at this. Dan says, this bull market does not end with 82% of those surveyed by Morgan Stanley saying they do not own cryptocurrencies. Tiny long exposure in Bitcoin and ETH, compared to the 2022. All of these metrics will make new highs in price and ownership during this cycle. 2026 will be a boom year, kind of, projecting that 2026 is to be, a bullish year. I'm personally projecting, historically speaking, obviously that should be a bear market, start to the bear market. Obviously, regulatory environment has changed. You're seeing institutional interest coming in. But again, guys, be cautious. This is where your strategy comes into play. Like I said earlier, if you're in for the long horizon, then it doesn't matter if, we do see a bull market next year or not, then it doesn't really affect you. But if you're in for the profits and you wanted to lock in this year, then go in with cautious, because nothing is promised whether or not the market is going to boom next year as well. Do let me know in the comments what you guys think, of course. But looking at the dominance, we're seeing a little bit of an uptick, obviously going into Monday morning, obviously due to the fact that Bitcoin is pushing below $112,000, currently sitting at $111,700. Again, goes back to what I say day in, day out. If we're below 115,000, then the door is open to these levels. So we're not surprised on that. We'll see what happens with Bitcoin tomorrow. If we're unable to, make our way back above the 115 this week, then, some of these targets, lower time frames, are definitely on the table. XRP, on the other hand, obviously below the $3 price point right now. Again, pretty much revisiting where we have been over the last, few weeks. We do have some support around this range. Obviously, if this does not hold back down to the likes of 278, could be on the table, but dominance might help us, start to, hold around these levels a little longer than we would usually. But again, keep an eye on Bitcoin, because if Bitcoin retraces a little more lower and dominance, tends to, pick up a little bit more, then of course, we could see, these targets being, retested in the next, few days to come. But again, I'll keep you guys covered on a day-to-day basis. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. We'll see you later on Crypto ZX, and peace out.